Now, Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan has announced a shake-up of state-owned companies. Gordhan says that this includes setting up a stronger commercial footing by creating a centralised shareholder model under a state-owned holding company.
Minister Gordhan says the holding company will embrace government's commercial entities that engage in business activities, such as Eskom and Transnet. He says the proposed model has been endorsed by the Presidential State-Owned Enterprise Council. The minister says the new model will separate the state's ownership functions from its policy and regulatory functions. He says this will minimize the scope for political interference, introduce greater professionalism, and manage state assets in a way that protects shareholder value. Gordhan says much progress has already been made and that a shareholder bill will be introduced after approval by Cabinet. He says the necessary documents to establish the holding company have been drawn up and the necessary consultation will soon be concluded. The minister added that work has also been done on the consolidation of state-owned companies, of which there are more than 700. Responding to criticism that he has subverted processes in the selection and negotiation of a partner for SAA, Gordhan assured the public that there has been absolute transparency and all necessary legal processes have been complied with, notwithstanding the regrettable efforts by many to sabotage and undermine the process. The National Treasury has made it clear that it was not consulted in the choice of SAA's strategic partner.
Dr. Iraj Abedian is the Chief Economist, Pan-African Investments and Research Services, and he joins us now via Zoom to talk to us a little bit about this development. Dr. Abedian, always good to talk to you. It's been a while. Welcome. All right, I think you're going to need to unmute so we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Peter. Good to see you.
Great, yeah.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while indeed. A lot of things have happened, and the Minister Pravin Gordhan has announced this new shareholder model. And I'm just wondering if it's actually a change, because ultimately you've still got the same shareholder for all of the entities.
Yeah, it looks on the face of it, Peter, that this is an attempt to cut political wrangling among government departments and amongst ministries. Because at the moment, for example, SAA reports to the Minister of Transportation, but also to the Minister of State-Owned Enterprises, also to the National Treasury. Transnet does the same. The NEL does to another ministry, and all these state-owned enterprises, they've become little fiefdoms of different ministers for abuse and for appointing their favorite political players into these boards. So that's partly is an attempt to separate ownership from the mandate and operations. However, it's quite clear that it's going to create another layer of inefficiency, another layer of bureaucracy, and another layer of cost, because now Transnet has to also not only get direction from the Minister of Transportation in terms of national transportation strategy, but also get some mandate, some consult, and some sign-off from this newly created state-owned entity or holding company. So I'm afraid this is going to be a lot more inefficient, and politically it may be convenient, but it's definitely neither business-oriented nor focused towards efficiency.
All right, let's compare it to a private company that has the same setup. You've got a holding company, and then you've got a whole number of companies underneath it. Why does that work? What happens there that won't happen in government?
Because the board of subsidiary and holding companies, to begin with, Peter, the trend globally has been going the other way around. The companies, in a way, get their share prices going up when they don't do holding company, when they split up the holding companies and allow them to run independently without any holding company interference. But in cases that it does work, It's in the case of investment holding companies having a whole lot of subsidiaries. But those investment companies do not interfere in the operations of the subsidiaries. But can you imagine this holding company, this new model, they sit aside and let subsidiary company be run the way they should, without minister saying something, without political party saying something, etc., etc. That's the difference. In the private sector, it's the return, it's the efficiency that matters. In the public sector, it's who is on the board, who is going to chair, which slate of which party is in charge, etc., etc. That is the predominant or preoccupation of management and governance, as opposed to efficiency, delivery, and competitiveness.
So one of the things that is being talked about is consolidating some of these state-owned subsidiaries, as we'll know them. I believe there's more than 700 of them at this stage. Right. Could it be that actually what we need to do is unbundle many of them?
To begin with, of the 700, and between you and I don't think anybody knows. They're all guessing how many. But let's say there are 700 of them. About 650 of them, we don't have to unbundle. We need to close down because they are not related to any enterprise. They are just wasteful political structures. The 50 that remains, we need to consolidate. We need to integrate, and we need to, in some cases, not in all, in some cases, privatize, sell it off. Of course, a lot of them are not fit to be privatized because they are bankrupt, they are badly run, and they are over-indebted. But some of them are. Therefore, we shouldn't talk about 700. If we're going to 700, Peter, another 10 years, we're going to do political horse trading before we can get something for the nation done or for the economy done. And it's important to focus on the economy because these enterprises are not organizations for administration and for politicking. They are critical network enterprises for the functioning of the economy, like Transnet, like the NEL, like telecommunication, like roads, and like water, so on and so forth. These are important underpinning of a well-functioning economy. If we're going to haggle over 700 entities, it will be another 10 years before we make a contribution to the economy. So I'm very, very concerned that Minister of State Enterprises, after 20 years being in the government as National Minister of National Treasury, SOE, is now talking about 700. They should not come to the parliament talk about 700. They should talk about 7 or 10 or 11 so that we can manage in a sensible timeline. It is a very concerning, really observation that after 20 years and after 10 years of looting these institutions, now we're talking about a new few years of consolidation of 700 entities. This is not the way, this is not business way of commercializing these enterprises.
Again, comparing with the private sector, what usually happens is that the CEO, the board, have to answer to their shareholder at the end of each year, and if they haven't performed, there are firings that happen. And so in the end, really what it is how a company is run more than anything else. So you can shift all these deck chairs, but at the end, it's who is the captain of the ship, isn't it?
Absolutely, and what they deliver. We don't, that's, I mean, the key point that you're making is not just about captain of the ship. It's what's the mandate and what's the deliverable, measurable outcome of those entities. The fact of the matter is we don't have that. What we should focus on instead of a holding company is to change the mandate of those entities, hold them accountable. If they are not delivering, kick them out, clean them out. We have ESCOM today, or Transnet today, is filled with incompetence, but the minister does nothing. Is busy himself with holding company. Clean up ESCOM, clean up Transnet, all of these entities that everybody says, including the chief executive of these entities, that these entities are overpopulated by many, many incompetent individuals. What are we doing to clean them? By changing the shareholding, you're not going to bring efficiency. You're not going to replace incompetent who are sabotaging operations, who don't know how to take care of the various assets that are under their management. Shareholding is not going to deal with that. Shareholding is going to more and more entrench mediocrity and incompetence and inefficiency. So I'm afraid the minister is really focusing on the wrong indicators. It's focusing on new shareholder model. We need to look at new operational efficiency-driven models.
How do we compare when it comes to other developing nations that also have state-owned entities? What is it that they've been able to do right that we could learn from?
Peter, the ones that we know, the ones that are successful, many emerging economies are grappling with the same challenge that we have. There are successful ones that we know. That the most successful, of course, once upon a time was Japan as a role model, then South Korea, then Taiwan, now to some extent some of the Latin American countries. There are very few and far in between, but the ones that have succeeded are exactly the ones that have focused on the operations and the mandate of these state-owned enterprises. All of them are state-owned by definition. They are national entities. But when they don't perform, they change the management. They don't deliver, they change, and they do not interfere day to day. Look at an example that we have. Land Bank has nearly collapsed at a huge cost. But the government is doing nothing. They take forever to change it. Chief executive, they bring one worse than the previous one, and nobody pays a price, neither politically, nor financially, nor operationally. The same thing with SAA, the same thing with Transnet and subsidiaries of Transnet. It is not ownership that matters. These are all state-owned enterprises. It is about defining their mandate, populating them with expertise and the skills, and accounting for it, meaning when the board doesn't deliver, they get out. When the chief executive doesn't deliver, they're out. And the role of the minister, the role of the cabinet is to precisely be focused on delivery, not on who is on the board, who is the chief executive. No, what do they deliver? Do they improve economic efficiency? Do they run the ports efficiently? Do they deliver electricity, etc., etc.? And if not, they intervene.
All right, Dr. Iraj Abedian, thank you so much indeed. Great talking to you. I hope that the next time is much sooner.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you so much.